Right guys, so now we've got our button in, we've got our canvas in, and we have anchored our button to its correct position. What we need to do now is we need to essentially make this work. So what I'm going to show you a simple script which works for a very basic level system. There are better ways of doing this, but they are slightly more complex. We're going to have two different UI handlers. We're going to have one for basic level systems, but we're going to have a different one for actually in-game, because we'll have more buttons in-game that do different things. So I'll show you this one quite quickly, and then we'll go on to the other one in the next video. So as I said, we've got his button, and what I've also done is I've made a second scene which has got a red background, so that we know when we switch from the one with the blue background to the one with the red background. Obviously it may not be it's not obvious if they look the same essentially. So what you need to do to start with is, if you go to File, Build Settings, you'll notice that you have no scenes in build. We're going to need some scenes in build essentially. So you just drag your scenes straight into there. So we've got a main menu and game level 1. The important piece of information you need to look at here is these numbers on the right. What these are their build index integers. So main menu is 0, game level 1 is 1. Very simple. That's kind of a crucial point. If you don't do this, this next bit isn't going to work. So, yep, we've done that. We can cross that off. That's fine. So what we need to do is we go into our scripts now. Remember, we made the scripts folder. We've got the movement script in there. And we're just going to go into create and add a new C# script. So what we're going to call this is we're going to call this the level select. And this is going to be our level select script. So double click on that. Wait for mono develop to open. For some reason mine keeps opening on my top monitor. So yeah, scripting. Scary. There is literally one line of code and one variable to show. The other thing we need to add is, can you see up here how we're using certain things? These are different requirements, these are different sections of Unity's code that we're going to be using. We need to add another one. So if we just add using Unity Engine, as I said before, it kind of does a lot of this for you. Full stop. Scene management. And this will allow us to jump in between different scenes. So the variable that we need to show is which level we're going to load. So remember the build index from before. So what we're going to show is we're going to do a public int, and I'm going to call this level to load. And do you remember what I said before about capitalizing? As you can see, I've not capitalized the L, but I've capitalized the T and the other L. This is called camel case, and essentially if I was to capitalize that L, Unity would think that I'm trying to look at a variable or a function. So by doing this, it's quite obvious to Unity I'm not looking for anything, this is me naming something. So what we need to add is we need to add a new function. So we've got our start function, we've got our update function. We're not going to use them. If we wanted to be honest, we could just delete them. What we're going to add is something called a public function. So if you type public, let me just bob that across, it'll wind me up otherwise. So a public void is the word for function, and we are going to call this load level. If we open brackets, close brackets, and because it's a function, it needs curly braces at the start and the end. So curly brace there, and a curly brace there. What I like to do is just put a space in between them, because obviously we need to write some code in here. If we forget to put that in there, what we've got is essentially an unclosed curly brace. So we've got this one here that closes by this one here, but now they're getting confused because so we need to make sure we've got that in just there. And the single line of code we're going to write is scene manager. So there it is. Dot load scene, and then in brackets, this is where it's expecting us to tell Unity which scene we're loading. So instead of actually putting a scene name in there, what we're going to do is we're going to reference our level to load from above. So what this will do is this will say this from this build index essentially. So we can save that. Minimize mono develop, and what I like to do is on this, give it a second to reference that, go into our button, and I will just drag that level select script onto here if it lets me. There we go. So we've got one function here that we can actually change the variable of. We can change what that number is. We want to load the game level 1, and if we remember rightly, by going back to our build settings, we can see that that has a build index of 1. If we left that at 0, what that would do is that would just load the same level. So let's change that to 1. So if we look at our button and we look in the inspector, we can see that there's this button script here, and there is a list here of what it does when it's clicked. So if we click on the plus, there we go, it says, right, what do you want us to do? So it looks for an object, and this object it then looks for a function of. So as we can see, no object in there, no function. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to drag that level select into there. So then we have to find the function. So if we click on there, we look at level select and we look at load level. So now what we'll do, we've set that up now. So essentially what this should now do is when we click that button, it should then load the Unity scene with the red background. So let's give this a try. Right, so it's working. You can see by hovering over the button, it's highlighting. Click that, there we go. A very, very simple level select system. As I said, we'll look at a slightly more complex one in the next video around actually in a game level, because we're going to want to have a restart, a quit, and maybe even a next level button in there. So yeah, spot on, we've done that, it works. Nice one.